Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my weekly podcast. Today, we have a politician from Bosnia and Herzegovina for the very first time, Mr. Admir Čavalić. Hello, Mr. Čavalić.
Hello, Eugene. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Čavalić, you are now podcasted. I would like to ask first about your early engagement into politics. Why did you start it, and what was that trigged you to enter into politics?
So I like to think of myself in Bosnian region as a so-called intellectual entrepreneur, meaning that I'm in business of selling ideas. My ideas are free market ideas, more economical freedom. I'm a classical liberal, and I like to propose those ideas. I like to teach about those ideas because I'm a PhD professor, and I started my NGO actually promoting classical liberal ideas, mostly economical liberalism in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 2011. So it was natural for me to eventually start into politics because I was in business of selling ideas or promoting ideas for politicians. So in 2018, I started in politics, lost one election, which is a great story for learning and so on. So in politics, you learn mostly from your failures, not successes. And after that, in 2020, I got my first mandate as municipality councillor in Tuzla, where I come from, city in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Eventually, I ended up in federal parliament 2022. So my entrance in politics was because before 10 years before politics, I was actually engaged in politics via NGO, with media, debates, discussions, and so on. And I want to be in politics, and this is a bit paradoxical. I did a couple of media interviews saying that I want to be in politics to make less politics, or to create environment where politics will be irrelevant in people's life, meaning less taxation, less regulation, so on. So I entered politics to do less or to create environment of less politics. Unfortunately, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as a post-communist country, there's lots of politics.
Okay. And comparing to when you started and today, do you see a big engagement of youth into politics, or is less?
I think that people, like, there's more youth, but it's like I'm a bit subjective there, because there's lots of people who are younger than me entering politics. So maybe from my perspective, I see lots of young people. Maybe that was the case before, but definitely we have a generation shift. You cannot stop that. I know that politicians, especially older ones, they like to hold their chairs. We see that globally as a trend. Everywhere, yeah. So when you say out loud, everyone says, I don't like to be in politics, but everyone likes to be in politics for the rest of their life, live in politics and so on. But definitely you cannot stop that. You cannot stop biological cycles. So eventually young people are entering, and I see that in Bosnia and Herzegovina also. There's lots of young people who are, I would say, entering with fresh ideas, with new narratives. So I like, especially, although I have lots of young people who don't share my views, we oppose each other and so on. But what I really appreciate is, it's a more frank conversation, more direct conversation, less, politicians like to hold big speeches, use political slangs, say something, but they don't say nothing, and so on. Young people, at least in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who enter politics, they're straight and they're direct. So I sometimes debate with them. I don't share their views, their proposals, and so on, but I appreciate that they're direct. That is something that we didn't have before, and I always hated like long political meetings, parliament sessions where people are just speaking nonsense, but they're not telling a thing.
Okay. And personally, I have been 2 times in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Uh, how have you seen the country moving forward? I guess there is a big change from the 90s, of course. But do you think that Bosnia and Herzegovina is reaching the level that it has to be to enter in the European Union, or what? What's your opinion?
I think like Bosnia and Herzegovina is growing 2-3% a year. Uh, it's a snail growth, as I say, like it's a slow growth. Uh, I'm not so proud or I'm not in favor of our slow growth. I think we should have like 5-6% GDP growth at least. But definitely, if you were in Bosnia 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 5 years ago, definitely every years you would see that things are moving forward, not in the pace and the speed that I would like personally, but they're moving forward. So it would be a life I said like before was earlier was better and so on. We had wars during the 90s, and I would say that that's really interesting. Like if you look Bosnia and compare it to the rest of the region of Western Balkans, the only island that didn't enter EU, Albania, Montenegro, Kosovo, Serbia, North Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think Bosnia and Herzegovina is not something that's like any different when it comes to other countries. So you would probably found the same problems of corruptions, of slow legal system, of hostile business environment, and so on, and some kind of political parties controlling institutions everywhere in the region of Western Balkans. So Bosnia is not something different, although Bosnia had different start positions, unlike Serbia, for instance, where they didn't have war, or Serbia is highly centralized system, and we are highly decentralized system. But if you look at the living standards and so on, people going living, going to work, and daily life, it's same. So Bosnia, yes, it's moving forward, but we're not so happy with the pace of or trend of our growth.
Okay. And do you think that the neighborhood countries have an influence into it?
Yes, especially Serbia and Croatia. You can understand that from certain point of view, because when you look at Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's 50% Bosnia community who are mostly Muslim. 35% it's Bosnian Serbs who are mostly Christian Orthodox, and maybe 15% or less it's Croats who are mainly Catholic. So Croatia has a strategic interest in Bosnia because they have lots of Bosnian Croats living there, and lots of Bosnian Croats are actually living in Croatia and are politicians right now, ministers, prime ministers, sometimes they have roots from certain presidents, mayors, and so on. And of course, in Serbia, it's the same. So they have special relationship with communities living in Bosnia. So that's something expected, but sometimes it's problem because, for instance, Serbia sometimes may have hegemonistic ambitions, or sometimes Serbia can act as a proxy of Russia, or create environment for Bosnian Serbs to act as a proxy of Russia or some other foreign countries and so on. That's something which we are dealing every day in Bosnia, and that's one part of Bosnian politics.
And do you feel that the European Union is it trying to protect you, or has left you on your own God's will?
Well, European Union is European Union, so you cannot expect hard stance, or consensus. So inside European Union, you have different countries, different views, players. Some of those countries are working with these countries who are creating proxies on Western Balkans and so on. So the position of European Union, I would not say it's neutral. It's positive towards Bosnia and Herzegovina, the integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina, EU path to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and even NATO integration of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which I think personally are crucial, even more crucial than EU in some sense, because of the stability on the region of Western Balkans. But I think EU should be more active. United States are, on the other side, more active when it comes to dealing with foreign influence in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in Western Balkans, because generally Western Balkans is seen as a playground between big forces, big countries trying to gain certain geopolitical, economical influence and so on. And you can see there Russia, China, United States, not so much EU, but yes, EU is present because we are candidate country and our path is EU. Our foreign economy, our trade is with the EU. So generally Bosnia is converging to EU economically, politically, legally, in every sense for the last 10, 20 years.
Okay, yeah. I see it also in Albania that EU, the recent years, has become very active, but the United States had always been the main pillar of economy and politics in Albania. That all the politicians, they have always referred to the United States. But personally, I think that a stronger European Union would save us from the situation that our countries are. But in Albania, we have, for example, now a huge cases taking news from the United States about how Open Society Foundation worked in the country. Do you also have something like that in Bosnia?
Open Society Foundation, they were active they are still active in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
And do you have the news that we get now that how not really active, but how much insight they were into the government?
No, unlike Albania and I think Kosovo, I think that in Bosnia there was a less of American influence. Yes, we have American influence in a sense of Dayton Peace Agreement, end of the war in Bosnia. A bipartisan deal about Bosnia when it comes to United States. But I think generally Albania and Kosovars, they more used the relationship with U.S. more closely in gaining even Kosovo the independence and stabilizing the Albania and the region. So I would presume, I'm not certain, I'm not living there, I'm not working there, I'm not positioned that like in the deep states, America, when it comes to deep states in Kosovo and Albania, America is more present than in Bosnia. I personally would like to have like lobby groups like Albania. Sometimes when I speak in Bosnian parliament, I use Albania and Kosovo as a good examples of lobbying towards states. So when Mr. Trump wins elections in Mar-Lago on celebration, you have Albanian politicians there. You don't have Bosnian politicians. That's our fault. And we're to blame there. So unlike Albania, we didn't have those scandals when it comes to Open Society or any other American agency. Yes, sometimes Americans are criticized because they're meddling around when it comes to media, when it comes to Office of High Representative, Bosnian institution that we have, and that's controlled by also EU. Sometimes they're accused about that, but I would say when it comes to political parties, they're not so much engaged like maybe in Albania.
Okay. And now, as we have the new Trump administration, how do you see it? Like the European Union, but also the Western Balkans, are they going to profit? Or is it going to be, as you said, a more intense playground for the bigger forces?
I think that Mr. Trump is a deal maker. I personally don't like barriers. No one likes barriers. He's always threatening with protectionism, barriers, tariffs, and so on. But maybe in the short term, he wants to create some kind of deal with Greenland, with Canada, Panama, with EU, with China, every other country in the world. I think there's a strong political crisis inside the EU because of before Mr. Trump and now because Mr. Trump, EU is trying to find its political identity. And it will be interesting, especially to look at the economical playground, because China is rising, US is rising. I expect like that US will have rise in their economy, and EU, especially Germany, is stagnating. And how do you feel that? You feel that because in some EU countries the extremist movements and parties are gaining momentum, probably because you have economical crisis, you have crisis of identity, you have political crisis, and any other crisis. So EU is trying to find itself. I think in this year, next year, that will be the case. When it comes to Mr. Trump, I think he will put more pressure on EU when it comes to economical affairs, foreign economical affairs, and also when it comes to functioning of NATO and every other international global organization, as he is doing right now. He's questioning all of them, he's leaving some of them, he's cutting programs that were crucial for European countries, especially in Western Balkans. USA aid is a last example, and so on. So he's definitely creating disruption, and that means that every other politicians who's not in Trump administration needs to react and needs to adapt. As fast as you adapt, I think you will be more successful.
Yeah. And speaking of Trump, when he came to the presidency, Bitcoin took a very high ground, and I know that you are an expert in Bitcoin and a huge promoter. So, would you suggest to people to invest in Bitcoin, and do you see Bitcoin as something reliable? How do you see it? Because in Balkans we are not so active, I think, in this field.
Yeah, because in Balkans you have lots of regulations, and it's not open market, like it's not so liberalized market as in Western Europe, and especially in United States and so on. So it's hard to create a Bitcoin venture, and hard to sell it, hard to buy it. Of course, there's some gray area and people are using that. But generally, I would refer to Hayek's. So there's Friedrich von Hayek. He was an economical laureate of Nobel Prize. He won it, 1964, I think. So he wrote lots of papers regarding decentralization of money. I'm economist, I'm PhD economist. For us, unlike for people who are maybe not economists, like money is just a mean of exchanging value. So we don't create some kind of fetish from money. Money is money. Everything can be money. In that sense, you can have the digital currencies. Gold can store your value and so on. Also, the gold, I think, hit records high when it comes to Mr. Trump and so on. Why? Because new administration, it's more open-minded towards cryptocurrencies, towards gold investments and so on. So investors saw that and they started buying more. When it comes to decentralization of money, there's a couple of decade old idea of trying to get hands on the money, not just money that's printed from central banks, but trying to create money. So when we got new technologies, when we got internet, it was only the question of time when we will get Bitcoin. So Satoshi Nakamoto, maybe he was one person, couple of person, we will never know that. He created Bitcoin. Before that, he wrote white paper on that. He explained the concept. And after Bitcoin, you started getting lots of new coins, thousands of them. I think that competition will create some of them, highlight some of them, destroy others, and so on. We had inflation of those coins, but market can only take care of a couple of them. So Bitcoin remained the most interesting, the most famous in the media, in general public. I think the cryptocurrencies are just one way of saving your investment, because in 21st century modern people, they need to think about investment in different shapes, in different forms. So it's not just paper money. It could be cryptocurrencies. It could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, any other cryptocurrencies. It could be gold. It could even be, old stickers, old stuff, and so on. So I encourage my students, I encourage young people, think about money as something flexible. It just mean of exchange and storing value. It could be everything. It's not just euros, dollars, we use convertible marks and so on. It could be everything. So everyone needs to be open-minded when it comes to that sense. So that's my take on Bitcoin and any other currencies. And I think the period of big profits is gone. So it eventually stabilizes. So you cannot get big profits. My biggest mistake is that I wasn't an early investor. If I was an early investor, I would be millionaire so far.
Okay. So you think that anybody who would invest today will not get millionaire in the future?
No, but it will be a mean of storing value. Of course, you can get big profits if you invest in some cryptocurrencies who currently are, selling low and eventually will have high prices. But Bitcoin is not that cryptocurrency.
Okay, but maybe a new one we will see in the future. Okay, so that is very interesting about the bitcoins and economy in general. So I would like to ask you, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, how much active are you in the parliament, and what do you want to achieve by being a member of the parliament?
So right now I'm number one MP when it comes to parliament activity. Really active. My family likes to joke, saying like we were thinking that when you enter parliament, it will be just sauna lagoons and working nothing as a politician in Bosnia usually do. But
Sorry to interrupt you. Like, I think that's what every Balkan family member thinks about politicians.
yes, they think, and unfortunately lots of that is true, but really I'm a radoholic. I like to work. I'm workaholic. Sorry, I used the Bosnian word. So I like to work a lot, especially I like to work on issues, topics that I like. So I'm lazy when it comes to topics that I'm not interested in. But when it comes to Bosnian politics, there's lots of economical issues. So mostly I'm dealing with economics and less taxation, less regulations, more power to the people, more money to the people. And I'm really proud. I had a couple of amendments, although I'm opposition currently, I had a couple of amendments to a law where I actually raised a couple of millions new tax burdens on our citizens. So that's one of the most proudest things that I could do. It's save money in wallets of taxpayers in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I would also like to deregulate lots of things because generally people here like to believe in some kind of conspiracy theories saying like some other forces are keeping us low, keeping us poor, stopping our development and so on. But if you look inside, if you're in part of the system, as I am, as an MP, you see that we created our own, burdens, our own chains, with political parties controlling institutions being extractive. Behind me, you can see why nations fail. They authors like Acemoglu and Robinson, they won Nobel Prize for Economics last year, and I translated last year that to Bosnian, and I'm actually promoting that as a MP. I'm actually dealing this book for free to my colleagues MPs. Why nations fail? Why? Because we don't have inclusive institutions. And I'm working towards inclusive institution. What is inclusive institution? Meaning that I will not be asked as an MP to do some favor for my citizens or some minister or prime minister. It will be question of inclusive institution, meaning that institution is working by some kind of automatic system like robots and so on. Everyone is the same. Everyone has the same options and so on. Unfortunately, in Balkans, politics is corrupt. People are entering politics so they can do favors to other people, and they're promising a lot. I'm proud that I didn't promise any job, any favor to my voters. They vote for me because I said I will do some things for you, in a sense that I will change laws and so on. So I would like to say that my mandate is really full active. We will see voters vote for me again next year. We have elections, but I don't care. Like, my mission is to tell the truth, and I'm using MP podium to tell the truth. Good thing is you have MP immunity, so you can tell whatever you want to tell. And I'm fighting for the freedom of expression, media, press. That's something that we have in Bosnia. We nourish that. So it's not centralized country. It's highly decentralized, meaning that media is highly decentralized. So it's relatively free media here, and everyone's saying what they can say. Unfortunately, politics is not listening. I'm trying to change that narrative. I'm one. There are a couple of people more, but I think generally, like, if you create some kind of standard by you alone, eventually others will follow.
And do you see it working? And I'm just asking because, for example, in Albania, we see that, and not only Albania, but other countries in the Western Balkans, that there are politicians who are trying to change the country, but it's a kind of barrier, it's kind of a wall that doesn't allow them to get to grow and to really help their people, as compared to the Western Europe, where young politicians entering politics with new ideas, they implement them in one or the other way. But in the Western Balkan, it's still a bit difficult.
No, that's a good point. It is. Unfortunately, lots of people in politics, when they enter or they hit that wall too much, they, they feel exhausted, and they have two options: they go out of the politics, or they become usual politicians. The same. They stop. So I push myself every day, and I think about that. Lots of people tell me, like, you're some kind of Don Quixote. Actually, there's a Don Quixote there, like here, like I bought it in Spain last year. So they say, "Look, you're Don Quixote. You're just doing stuff. Doesn't matter." No, I think generally, because I have a background of promoting ideas. Generally, time is on your side, but it means maybe we are creating some kind of space for the future generations. I don't know, maybe for these generations, we don't know. But eventually, every word, every book that you write, every law that you implement, every amendment that you implement, it makes a difference. There's a famous story, a small ant building a structure, so every rock he takes, it's a big difference. He makes a difference. They ask him, why do you do that? You're an ant. He says, I make a difference. So I think, as myself, in that sense, so it's really important to make a difference. Will it be huge? Will it be small? I don't know. I cannot change that. If I want to have a big audience, I would need to be a populist politicians, and I don't want to do that. So I think that my voters are highly educated, highly economically independent. They have their incomes. They don't depend on politics, and I think that I will always be minority in that sense. But it's important that my voice or their voice is being heard. So I see that as my mission.
Yeah, and from minority, one day there will be majority. And I really
Yes.
believe in politicians as you. Like, I've seen that young politicians, they try. Some of them succeed, some of them they do not succeed, but there is always hope.
That's the most important thing, because if we lost that hope, no one would change nothing, never. You would just stop. You say there is no hope and so on. I see hope. The problem is time. We are not, gigantic turtles that we live like 100 and a couple of
Yeah.
years. So that's the problem. Like, the time is problem, but hope, the future, I'm really optimistic.
But before closing, I would like to ask you one thing. Often, when I do political conversations, people speak for ideas, but then somehow it always ends up into money, into budget that people have in their pocket, rents and stuff. Do you think that hope comes together with economy, or economy is helping the ideology?
Well, I think
And how
economy.
does it work on your case personally?
Now, when it comes to me personally, like I'm a PhD professor, had the NGO, I speak internationally, lead teams, so I'm highly independent of politics. Unfortunately, lots of people enter politics so they can gain some money, they can make a living. And we even have a negative selection of people, meaning that people, they couldn't start their own company, they couldn't be famous or successful on the market, so they go to politics. And you get people who really, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but they really don't have qualities, and you see that they don't really belong here. And sometimes they're majority, maybe they're even now majority, so that's a big problem. That's why I like to fight against salary raises to MPs, against beneficiaries. I don't use them personally. I see myself as a fiscal conservative. Uh, sometimes extra money I get as an MP, sometimes I use that to send free books to people. I just write on social media, so who wants to free book from economics, who the only requirement from me is that you read it, and I send them. People say, yes, I wanted to give me your address, I send it by post. It's on me, like I'm
Yeah,
paying with your
very good
money.
initiative. Yeah,
But yes, I get your point. Like lots of people entered, and I speak with my fellow friends, like from academia, and we sometimes create intellectual challenges, intellectual stories about that. And I say, who would be a true intellectual in our sense in Balkans, or who would be an honest politician? Someone who eventually would vote for some law or some reform, or support it as an intellectual, not vote. And he knows or she knows that that law, that reform is great thing, it's doing good for the country, for the people, but eventually he or she will lose 1,000 euros. Believe me, there's not so many people who would vote for that, honestly, and that's our problem. Because you didn't get people inside politics because they're following ideals, they want to change the world, their nation, their country. You got people who just want cash.
yeah,
So I use that. I call that as my intellectual test. You want to be independent intellectual, you want to be independent politicians. Okay, would you vote for something that eventually will, you know, would get your gains? You would lose something. You lose money, directly money. You're saving, and people say, "Well, I don't know. I need to respect myself," which is, of course, a philosophy of its own. You need to respect yourself, but don't respect yourself with other people's money, like taxpayers' money. And I'm always, because I'm a economical liberal, I'm always think about that. So you know, we're using other people money to create some things. We're not using our own money. And I always criticize politicians. Don't brag about projects. Don't brag about building a new hospital and so on. You just used other people's money to create something. You didn't use your own money. If you do that from your own money, that's a big plus from me, for you. Like, so here's a handshake and so on. But we are only like medium. We are all for that, for that money. We're just using that money that's gained throughout taxes from other people, not by their own will, not voluntary. So we're just, transmitting that in some things that I think are good, or I think those voters will be proud to. It's better to build hospital than buy new cars for politicians, of course. But I'm really modest there. I really appreciate people who use their own money, because generally, as economist, I think that when you use your money, you're honest. When you use other people's money, there's always dishonesty there.
yeah.
It's as a kid, every kid knows that if he earns some money on its own, he's keeping that money, investing, saving, and so on. If you just give him money, he spends that money. Same in politics.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Well, I really liked our conversation, Mr. Čavalić, and I'm wishing you all the best in your campaigning year. And I hope you will get re-elected in the Bosnian parliament, because I think Bosnian people will have a huge asset in their parliament with you inside of it.
Thank you so much, Eugene. And if I don't get elected, of course, I will stay in the business of promoting ideas. So I'm in politics any way around. Thank you
So
so much.
you see, that's why you are rare, because most of the people, once they don't get elected, they just disappear from politics.
No, no.
So
Yeah, I was 10 years before, so I'm in media everywhere. Like 10 years now, I'm an MP, but I was communicating. I was like speaking about politics, about economic politics, especially even before, and I will do that afterwards. Maybe I will have more times to write books.
yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This was our podcast. Follow us on our social media and see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye bye.